Patterns are the cornerstone to any good video game boss. Sure, having elements of unpredictability shakes up a fight, and sticking too close to a single pattern leads to nauseating repetition. But by mastering pattern recognition, some of the most fearsome foes can be turned into flawless demonstrations of triumph. This is especially true of action platformers like Kirby, Mega Man, or Castlevania, where you go back and forth between avoiding a boss's patterns and trying to win a war of attrition. For more pure platforming experiences, however, that ground can be kinda shaky. In a genre where only having 1 or 2 hit points means that making a mistake is infinitely punishing, how are you supposed to create a boss encounter that's memorable, engaging, fun, and fair? You shoot Donkey Kong in the face and then go bully his little friends is how. Because dang, is K. Rool Duel from Donkey Kong Country 2 a masterpiece in pattern design. Platformer bosses normally come in 3 varieties. You've got your obstacle course bosses, where the boss is either racing you to the end of a level or is otherwise part of a larger series of traps for you to get to the end of. And usually it's an auto-scroller of some kind. Solid and reflective of the genre, but kinda lacking in agency and directly going against the boss. You've got your war of attrition bosses, where they're always vulnerable and you've gotta pick your shot as to when to hit them, or else run face first into an attack. Generally preferable, but usually there's some sort of strategy to cheese them out, or they're just a variation of Boom Boom from Mario 3. And you've got your wait for them to show their weak point and then beat them up bosses, which are usually the worst as you're just flailing around waiting for an opening. These weak point-centric ones are generally the hardest to make enjoyable. You've got to make sure the player isn't just sitting on their hands and dodging an easy pattern, or still feel like they have agency if they aren't just waiting for the boss to kill itself. And in the first Donkey Kong Country, King K. Rool is very much a victim to this. Yes, his pirate ship theming, the song, and the fake credits trick are all absolutely fantastic, but he's a lot of very basic pattern memorization. He even makes sure you know when to hit him after he throws his crown, looking at the camera like, "Oh hey buddy, wow did I ever screw up? Maybe you want to hit my skull with some flying aprias? Just a thought, just a thought." While it's a memorable fight, it's not really so much for the content as it is for the context. The actual gameplay comes down to jump on the guy after he does the same move in the same way through 3 very predictable patterns.
Oh, banana.
Days saved. For the rematch, K. Rool changes everything. K. Rool starts the fight by shooting out a cannonball limply in front of the team of Diddy and Dixie. A player's instinct is, naturally, to go and pick it up, maybe tossing it at the crocodilian captain. But unfortunately, Kaptain K. Rool has learned to never take off his hat, and the sheer fortitude of hat-based technology covers up his weakness from the first DKC, making him immune to a simple cannonball toss from the front. And if you hold on to it, Diddy and Dixie's mobility options are limited, so K. Rool slowly jetting across the stage is a bit more tricky than usual. K. Rool follows his jet up by sucking in with his blunderbuss, which provides an opening for the Kongs. Hurl the cannonball into the gun barrel, and watch as K. Rool's gun jams and explodes on itself. And if you fail to hurt K. Rool in this phase, that's no problem. The captain's more than glad to just spit another cannonball out and repeat the pattern until you figure out how to hurt him. The important thing to note here is that though pressure is applied to the player, it's up to them to advance the fight. And up to them to keep their guard up, as the means of hurting K. Rool also serves as a last-ditch attack with the gun backfiring. Afterward, K. Rool advances the fight by shooting out a spiked cannonball, leaving it on the floor for the player to avoid. After dodging K. Rool rocketing back and forth, the spikes retract, letting the player pick it up and harm K. Rool again. This pattern then repeats with 2 spiked cannonballs, ending the phase when the boss takes his 3rd hit. A cornerstone of platformer boss design is limiting the movement options that a player has available, and it's done masterfully here. The player has already damaged K. Rool in a controlled environment back when the Gator himself was the only obstacle. Introducing the cannonball as a means of damaging the boss, then using spikes to show, no, you can't go here now. eases the player into a more rigid pattern, where more is expected of them after they've shown basic understanding. Past the first 3 hits, K. Rool takes a dive, and a DK barrel spawns for a player that happened to take a hit during K. Rool's first phase. However, ever notorious for his fake-out deaths, K. Rool springs back up and resumes the battle, launching into his next phase. I really love the addition of the DK barrel to the fight. Donkey Kong Country 2 essentially gives you 2 hit points between Diddy and Dixie, meaning a single mistake would be incredibly costly if you still have to learn upcoming patterns. Having a safety net there to catch the player is not only generous, but practically essential to make a longer and more difficult boss fight feel engaging. It turns each of K. Rool's phases into their own endurance match, where you're allowed to mess up once and have to survive just long enough for the DK barrel to spawn. And if you're good and get through without taking a hit, the DK barrel still hovers there just in case you need it, a bonus for mastery of patterns previously learned. The second phase of the fight shows K. Rool launching out an array of spiked cannonballs. These come out in 3 patterns: shot directly at the player, shot bouncing across the ground, and shot in a spinning, almost knuckleball-esque pattern. The first of these is fairly straightforward, being more a test of pure reflexes, but the second and third patterns are irregular, introducing movement paths that the player isn't used to and haven't been encountered elsewhere in the game. Mistakes in this second phase are fairly common, nerves often getting the better of a player, but nothing feels unfair. All of K. Rool's shots are independent of the player's position, meaning that all damage taken is entirely the player's fault, and not due to pressure or placement from the AI. It's a consistent challenge for the player to overcome. 6 hits in, K. Rool goes down again, another DK barrel spawning to congratulate the player for their endurance to this point. But the toothy tyrant isn't going to take a slight against him so easily, and pulls out all the stops for his third and final phase. After jetting far faster than he ever has before, K. Rool shoots forth 3 puffs of exhaust. These can only be dodged by jumping over at full speed with Diddy or twirling over with Dixie. Relatively unfair to expect of a player unless they're already abusing Dixie's helicopter twirl on a first go-round. However, this exhaust does not deal damage. Instead, it affects the player's mobility. K. Rool's initial blue exhaust freezes the Kongs in place, requiring them to mash out before he slowly, mockingly rockets into them. It allows the player a level of panic time, being able to quickly correct their mistakes before taking permanent damage. And then K. Rool reveals his ultimate secret. He has the power to turn invisible. No, I don't know why, but he can do it. Slowly turning translucent before vanishing entirely, only a smoke trail at the back of his sprite revealing his location as he moves. Not only is this a test of the player's pattern mastery, relying on their muscle memory of K. Rool's size to know when to begin a jump, but it's also a mini-phase entirely independent of the exhaust cloud gimmick. The player isn't forced to juggle 2 new concepts at once, and when the gimmicks are mixed together later on, the player's fully prepared to handle it. K. Rool continues this with cannonballs combined with red exhaust clouds that slow a Kong's movement to a crawl, making dodging incredibly difficult in this more aggressive phase. And finally, K. Rool brings out all the stops during his last health point, knuckleball exhaust clouds that reverse controls in a pattern nearly impossible for Diddy on his own to dodge, and still relatively difficult for Dixie, invisibility making him pop up all over the place, and using the suction move that you've been turning against him this entire fight into a terrifying short-ranged attack. Everything that K. Rool Duel is builds into this final test, still introducing new elements while keeping the player intimately familiar with the mechanics, serving as a perfect crescendo until Diddy or Dixie can land that last hit. And just as a last defiant act to the player, the kickback on K. Rool's final cannonball is timed differently than every other kickback before, leading to one last moment of panic and the possibility of, I can't believe I died on the last hit. And then, with Donkey Kong delivering one uppercut to finish the job, the captain is forced to sleep with the fishes. There is a secret final boss to DKC2, one where K. Rool unleashes a practical bullet hell of his previous pattern in one long string, but I feel like bringing the king down on the flying croc is the more mechanically brilliant encounter. A pattern isn't good because it's challenging, or because it's iterative, or because it lasted just the right amount of time. It's a mixture of all these elements and more that makes for a fantastic pattern-based boss. Kaptain K. Rool is always building on himself, always mixing his attacks in with one another or giving them a new spin, but never as simply as, just put the patterns from the first or second hit together for the third hit. Nothing is introduced suddenly enough that a player won't be able to react or have time to figure out what's going on. The entire space of the battlefield is used, players becoming intimately familiar with the hitboxes of the Kongs, the captain, the cannonballs, and the cabin of the ship the fight takes place in. And mastery of easier parts of the fight is rewarded not with the ability to skip them, but a buffer to benefit the player in later sections where they might be struggling. Overcoming Kaptain K. Rool is a grueling test, but never an insurmountable one. And the fairness and depth that this crocodile offers makes him one of the all-time great encounters of the SNES era. The King of the Kremlings perfectly, connivingly, designed for patterns.
Everything I've ever wanted but been tragically denied. Oh, this feeling's overwhelming, so much joy I cannot hide. I've got the coconut and it's causing a commotion. Proclaim it from the highest peaks and shout over the